Hello, everybody, and welcome into the 61st edition of Texas Longhorns Live. I am your host, Matthew Miller. That is my co-host, Gerald Goodrich. He is back this week, so please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. Fall camp kicks off today, and we are basically a month away until kickoff when we go into the horseshoe and hopefully grab a W. So again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. We really appreciate it. We've grown quite a bit. I think last time I checked, last 28 days, 120, 130 subscribers, somewhere in between there. We're trying to get to about 3,400 is the new goal. I said 3,200. We're already there. So 3,400 is the new goal. Get us there and join us every Monday night. Now, a little bit late, but I kind of wanted to get, digest to get my thoughts in order for this. SEC media poll results came out and they had Texas number one, not by a wide margin, but they did get the majority of first place votes, followed by Georgia with number two. And actually, I'm just going to throw this there up on the screen because I do have the file and I'll throw that up there in 1 second. But I just wanted to talk about it because I think it is interesting and where the SEC media as a whole thought this would go. So there it is. Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, South Carolina, Florida, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Auburn, Missouri, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Kentucky, and then, of course, Mississippi State ending there. Gerald, what are your thoughts as a whole? Do you think they got it right with Texas in particularly?
Man, it's close. Like, I feel like if Texas had a wider margin over Georgia, I would feel a lot differently about it. But I think Texas and Georgia effectively being neck and neck. Like, a couple of people flip Texas and Georgia on their ballots, and Georgia's number one and Texas is number two. And this will come out, I think, as we talk about like over and underrated teams. But like ultimately, I think Texas and Georgia are probably not far and away, but I think Texas and Georgia are the two best teams. And you can almost look at the like tiers almost in the rankings. It's like Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, and then there's like a 500-point gap, and then you get like South Carolina, Florida, Ole Miss, A&M, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and then another kind of gap, and then you get to Auburn. So like I think there's like three distinct tiers and the SEC. And if I think about it like that, I think that makes sense. And I think the groupings do make sense. I think the groups that'll probably be the most relevant for the SEC championship are Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. And I think South Carolina too probably has something to say about that. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. But like I think you see the top four teams based on recruiting rankings, based on talent composites, based on all of those things. I think the tiers that they've got there make sense.
No, I that's the mindset I had for this as well. Like tiers to me, the teams that I think can definitely win the SEC are Texas, Georgia, Alabama, LSU. I do think out of that middle tier, there will be a 15 that climbs up, surprises us, and they will be in that conversation at the end of the year. But I completely agree with that. I personally have Alabama number two. I get this weird feeling with Georgia this year, guys. I don't really love a lot of their positions. Like every year I look at their position groups and I'm like, damn, I really love that dude. They don't really have that dude right now for me, other than linebackers. I think they're really, really good at the linebacker group, but their defensive line, other than Christian Miller, there's a lot of question marks. Secondary, a lot of question marks. And they weren't even that great last year in the secondary, honestly. Running backs, can Nate Frazier hold on to the football? Because if he can't, they're going to have – it's basically imagine if Jarrett Gibson was our starter. He has a lot of talent, but he fumbles a lot. That's kind of how I feel like with Nate Frazier. And their offensive line hasn't been great the past couple of years. So personally, I don't have them number two. But again, if we're tiering this, they're definitely in tier one.
Yeah, and I think, it's hard for me to say that Georgia shouldn't be there because by virtue of who Georgia has been in the SEC over the last – 7-ish years, right? 10-ish years. I think they deserve that spot. I think they deserve that respect until somebody knocks them off their perch, right? The SEC, I think, will run through Athens until somebody says otherwise. And so having them there makes a lot of sense to me. Kirby Smart is still Kirby Smart, right? They've still got stacks and stacks and stacks of talent. Again, is it going to be... I think we're past probably the era of buzzsaw teams like we've seen. So we're not going to ever see Georgia be that buzzsaw team or Alabama be that buzzsaw team. I think we're just past that era. But ultimately, I think Georgia still has a crap ton of talent there in their rooms. And I think ultimately their coaching staff is really good and has found a way. I mean, last year we said the same thing going into the year that this wasn't this wasn't Georgia team of 2 or 3 years ago. And they still managed to win the SEC, beat Texas twice. And then they ran into Ohio State in the playoffs. That's another conversation, right? But like ultimately, having Georgia in the top tier until proven otherwise makes sense to me. And I think the gap being so narrow between them and Texas makes a lot of sense for me as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Like I said, in the tier system, they 100% deserve to be in tier 1. So I talked about that one team jumping up from that second tier. I want to get your opinion on that. Who do you think it is and why?
Yeah, I you said who, so I have to pick one. And I think it's honestly Florida's probably my pick for it. I think the two things that really give me a good feeling or good vibes from Florida this year, obviously DJ Lagway. I think DJ Lagway is going to be a top 3-ish quarterback in the conference. And Florida's going to have one of the most experienced offensive lines in the country. They returned 4 of 5 guys from last year, 2 of which would have been like top 3 round picks. Like they had a first team All-American come back. They had like a right tackle come back that were both draft eligible guys that would have been pretty decently drafted kids. So I think when you have a really good quarterback behind an experienced and pretty solid offensive line, I think they were like number 11 in pass blocking in PFF last year. So like you have a good quarterback behind an experienced offensive line that's proven that they're good. It's going to be an offensive year, I think, in the SEC in a lot of ways. And so that gives me Florida vibes just based on its quarterback-driven offense. You're going to have a good offensive line. I think their skill positions will figure it out because you could put you could put an average quarterback behind a good offensive line with decent skill players and win national championships. Steve Sarkisian did it with Mac Jones, right? So like you could see that ultimately happening at Florida. I wouldn't be shocked if it was South Carolina either for similar reasons. I think Lenore Sellers is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country as well. So if I had to pick one, you told me to pick one, I think Florida's probably my pick.
So up until today, I was aboard that Florida train because of DJ Lagway, but I just got to jump off now because he's already had 2 injuries and we're not even in fall camp. Like today, he's seen walking around in an ankle boot. Like you can't be injured this much during the offseason. And then when you get into the season, I'm going to expect you not to be injured. I just can't do that. So I'm off, and I'm going to hate saying this, but I have a weird feeling because they're not getting the hype they normally do in the offseason. I think Texas A&M has a real shot to make the SEC championship game this year, and I hate saying that. Obviously, I do not like Texas A&M, but they're not like usually we hear, oh, Texas A&M, Texas A&M. You're not hearing that, and usually when you're not hearing that, that's the year that team jumps up and surprise everyone. That's how life works. So I think it's going to be them. I think Marcel Reed's going to be better this year in the system. I think their defense will always be fine because Mike Elko is a really good defensive head football coach. And their wide receivers are good, like Casey Concepcion from North Carolina State coming over. You have Mario Craver, who I really liked. I actually wanted Tex to pursue him because he played really well in the Mississippi State game when we played him. Him and Kevin Coleman both did. So those two really good. And then if you're getting Le'Veon Moss back healthy, I had him as the number 1 ranked running back from in the SEC last year. I think they'd be the number 1 ranked running back in the SEC this year. They're really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, Moss and Ruben Owens coming back from injury as well. It's hard to think that their offensive skill is not going to be very good. And again, I've said it. I've gone on record on multiple times saying I would not be shocked if the Texas A&M game was an SEC championship play-in. Like whoever wins that game goes to Atlanta to play for the game. I would not be surprised if that was the case because I think they're both very good teams. Like you said, a Mike Elko defense, you could probably put your mortgage on it being solid, a top 15 defense. And the offense will get better. I think, Marcel Reed's ability to process quickly and to make the right reads, I think is still going to be probably not, I don't want to say limiting factor. Like, I don't think he can do it, but like if he can't do it, that's going to be a limiting factor for them because I think a lot of what Marcel Reed did last year was first read and tuck. And so I think if he can mature, if he's able to become more of a well-rounded passer and less of kind of your traditional scrambling quarterback, I think that's probably going to be, because the guy's got an arm, he's got a freaking cannon. So if he can make the reads and he can put himself in position again, I think offensive line for them is going to be a big question. I don't know what they're going to have with that unit. I think they've had some addition by subtraction with some guys deciding to leave, but ultimately, I think Marcel Reed, part of his running problem last year was the fact that offensive line just wasn't very good. And so if their offensive line can go from bad to good, or at least, slightly average, then I think they could probably take a big step forward. And like I said, I'll say it again, like I would not be shocked if we're looking at that Black Friday game with Texas A&M being a play-in game for the SEC championship. That would not shock me in the slightest bit.
No, and you kind of gave South Carolina as another one. I think Auburn, if Jackson Arnold's just an average quarterback with the wide receivers they have, I think they have the second best wide receiver core in America behind Ohio State. That's how talented they are with like Eric Singleton, Cam Coleman, and Perry Thompson. Those guys are really, really good. And they have a lot of offensive line returning. And Kendrick Falk is a really, really good defensive player. So it really is. If Jackson Arnold is the guy Oklahoma thought he was last year, Auburn can probably jump into like that 5th spot in the SEC.
And I've said that I don't think Arnold was the issue. I think it was the offensive line. And that's why that the other quarterback was able to play better because he's more of a pure runner than Jackson Arnold. So I don't think Jackson Arnold was the issue in Norman last year. I think you've got to talk about Bill Bedenbaugh, and I've talked about that at length on how I think he had a bigger issue or more to do with OU struggles last year than folks want to give him credit for. But yeah, I think Jackson Arnold, I don't think he is that bad of a quarterback. I think he was put in a bad position. He was expected to carry a team, and that's not really a great spot to be in as a freshman coming in at a place like OU that expects excellence, right? They expect that tradition of excellent quarterback play. And so I don't think he was put in a position to be successful, and he wasn't. So like, shocker, a 19-year-old was put behind the 8 ball and wasn't quite the savior to win the SEC in your first year there. I don't think we should be surprised by that at all.
No, I completely agree. So that does it for SEC media poll results. We might as well just jump right into what I think is going to be one of the 2 to 3 best camp battles, and that's who's going to be cornerback number 2. There's a lot of names there. Jalen Gilbo, Kobe Black. Does Warren Roberson play out there? Does Cade Phillips, freshman year, take that over? And that's the thing too, guys. Like, I think Malik Muhammad is definitely a downgrade from Jahdae Barron, but there's a possibility the cornerback 2 could actually play as good as Malik Muhammad did last year, at least in big games. Who do you think that's going to be, Gerald, and why do you think that is?
Yeah, and I think the nickel spot also kind of complicates this conversation just because it's such a key spot in that defense. And it's, Jahdae Barron was that guy last year who won a Thorpe playing that spot. And so I ultimately, I think Kobe Black is probably the guy I would pick just because of he's more of a pure corner, I would say, than I think the other. Like, when you talk about Jalen Gilbo, I have Jalen Gilbo at that nickel spot just because I think he probably skews closer to Jahdae Barron than anybody else on the roster. And so when I think about like where folks fit and the success of the defense, I would put Jalen Gilbo at that nickel spot, and then Kobe Black as that other cornerback. I just think his mix of athleticism, size, speed, he's kind of like tailor built to be the guy in that spot. I wouldn't be shocked if either guy. I'd be happy with either guy playing. And I think Texas has, I wouldn't, again, I really have Gilbo in my mind as the nickel guy. I don't know why I can't move past that, regardless of whatever evidence is out there. Maybe it's just because I like his skill set. I think it reminds me of Jahdae Barron in a lot of ways. But ultimately, back to the question, I think Kobe Black is the guy. I like the size. I like the speed. I like the ability to be that. He's a guy who can play one-to-one man if he needs to. He's physical enough. He's big enough. But also, I think he plays zone really well, communicates really well. So when you need to make those pass offs between zones, I think he's able to do that. So long-winded way to get there. I think Kobe Black is probably my answer.
Yeah. So I think they're going to handle this multiple different ways. I think early on, it's probably going to be Jalen Gilbo out there because of the experience level. Like when we play Ohio State, I don't think I want Kobe Black's first start coming in that game. I don't think I want Cade Phillips' first start coming in that game. So I think early on, you're going to see a lot of Jalen Gilbo out there just because he knows the defense. He's going to be able to react. But later in the season, I do think you're going to see him kind of being faded out of cornerback number 2. And I think you're going to see Kobe Black or Cade Phillips take over because they're just more physically gifted and can play that position better. They're both 6'1", 6'2" guys that are long, lengthy, can drop back, read the quarterback size in the cover 3, make a read on the ball, or one-on-one down the sideline. They can play the ball and they can play the man. They can also turn their head around. That used to be a really big issue with Texas cornerbacks not being able to play the ball in the air. I think both those guys can do that. And I think Jalen Gilbo can do that as well. I just don't think he has the necessary foot speed in game to do so. I know he's been clocked GPS wise at like 21, 22 miles an hour, but that's also, running drills and everything like that. That's totally different than reading, reacting in game. And I think that's where people mix it up with Jahdae Barron. Like, I think his 40 time was better because obviously he trained for that. But if you just told him to get on a track and run to 40, I don't think he's the fastest guy in the world, but he played super fast because he was super intelligent and trusted his eyes and the system. So imagine if you could get guys that are more athletic, like a Kobe Black and Cade Phillips, to do that. You have like a stud out there, another guy at the cornerback 2 position. So I do think it's going to be one of them. And then, like, I think Jelani McDonald is going to be the nickel. I've said this for like 3 or 4 months. He's just a perfect fit for that role. Like, sideline to sideline. He reminds me so much of Jahdae Barron because he's come downhill. He's physical. He can play in space. And I think he's just ready for a big role. And we've heard that out of sources, apparently, like inside text, on text reporting of, hey, this guy could be the 3rd best player on the defense, which is high praise for Jelani McDonald. But we've seen it when he plays. He's a really, really good football player.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who's started 4 games, I think, last year. Like, there's the coaching staff trusts him. He's got played quite a bit last year. I think more at a safety role than at a corner role. So I think moving him down from the back end of the defense, and I think that gives you some positional versatility. I think it gives you somebody on that front end that can do a little bit of more, and I think that's what you need out of that nickelback spot. So I think I wouldn't, again, Jelani McDonald, big kid. I think he's 6'2", 6'3" ish. I don't remember. I don't have the roster on hand, but like I think 6'2" ish, 200 pounds. So like big guy, can play physical. I mean, the open field tackling is always the big question or flag at that nickelback position. It's one of the reasons why Jahdae Barron was so good at it, because he was such a sure tackler in the open field. But I think Texas has done a really good job of coaching that up. They're not as whiffy, I'll say, as they have been in the past. So yeah, I think if we see Jelani McDonald slide down to nickel, it would be. I think it just means that he's been playing up to the position, because I think this is a staff that's not beholden to experience, not beholden to seniority. They're going to play the best 22 guys on both sides of the ball. And so if it is Kobe Black over Jalen Gilbo, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Jalen Gilbo early and then they decide to go in a different direction. I mean, and there are guys that, you see the lights come on a Saturday and they look completely different than they did, a year ago. This offseason probably had a lot of development for these folks, but ultimately, Jelani McDonald playing that nickel spot, I think would work really well for Texas. He's a physical kid, and he's able to play multiple spots, so it makes sense.
No, and that's the thing too. Like, I think all these guys are going to get a decent amount of playing time because they're going to play 5-6 defensive backs at a time. So you're going to see these guys out there, possibly even 7 at some point. Jalen Gilbo could line up at linebacker in certain instances if you need him to. He's big enough on third and long situations. So
yeah,
all these guys are going to get playing time. I think the majority of the snaps, I agree. I think it's going to go to Kobe Black. I just think he's so physically talented and gifted that he's going to get the majority of the snaps going down the stretch of the season. And that's the thing too. Like, I think Malik Muhammad is a really good player. He could even get switched out in certain scenarios if he struggles like he did last year. And I see people online saying, well, he didn't really struggle. Guys, you can't judge him versus what he does versus like Sam Houston and teams like that. You judge him what he does versus Georgia, A&M, Arizona State, Clemson. That's who I'm judging him versus, because that's who you have to beat to win a national championship. I don't care how he plays versus Mississippi State. No offense. He could shut down everyone on that team, not give up a reception. I just don't care, because you should beat Mississippi State. Mississippi State's no good. Mississippi State might go winless in the SEC. So that's where I am with this team. Like, who can be the best guys when you get to the playoff? Yeah. And I think Kobe Black is definitely going to be number 2, in my opinion, at the cornerback position.
Yeah, I think Kobe Black has been, I think, on the periphery. Like, that's a name you've been hearing for a while, right? Like, there were talk of him last year potentially pushing for some more run. And so when you hear that talk early, they're a guy that the coaches really like. And again, this is SEC ball. These are not coaches that are playing sentimental coaching. If a guy is pushing for playing time, it's because he's one of the best guys on the squad. He's one of the best, 15-ish guys on that defensive side of the ball. So if we've been hearing his name for long enough that it would make sense, and I wouldn't be shocked for him to be the next man up.
No, and that's a good point. They don't really have, obviously they recruit these guys, they want them to succeed, but they're not, beholden to them, tied to them to where, hey, you have to succeed. The only time I've ever really questioned Sark's move, and honestly, he was wrong, was when he started CJ Baxter over Jonathan Brooks. That's the only thing I can think where you probably should have started that guy over this guy. But other than that, I mean, they've kind of hit it out of the park with that.
Yeah, and I don't know what the Brooks situation was. It worked out. It worked out as well as it could have, I guess, barring the injury at the end of the year. But that worked out okay, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. So that's who we believe will be cornerback number 2. Again, guys, if you know any sponsors that would like to sponsor us or any show at the Voice of College Football, we'd greatly appreciate it. Get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the Voice of College Football. Let's discuss how you can also reach your target market audience. Check out the experience of one of our current partners posted on the screen. We are here to deliver for you. Contact us at sponsorships@vocfb.com today. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Also, check out the Amazon link in the description. It is free, doesn't cost anything, and it just puts a little bit of change into Mark Rogers' pocket, helps grow the brand of the Voice of College Football. And speaking of Mark Rogers, here he is letting you know.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
We really appreciate you guys doing that. Again, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. That is also free and helps us out quite a bit. We are on the road to 2,400 subs, so please get us there before the season. We got about, 4.5 weeks before that happens, so please do that. This is Texas Longhorns Live 61. We will have number 62 next week. We really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Next up, and I think this one's super interesting because there hasn't been a starter named at right tackle, and the indication is that Nick Brooks is giving Brandon Baker a run at right tackle, which honestly is a surprise because Nick Brooks coming in wasn't, a plug-in guy freshman year that everyone thought would start, but when they saw him in spring, they said, hey, that's a future NFL guy, future first-round pick. That's what everyone reported and everyone said, but he's really pushing Brandon Baker. So what are your thoughts on this, Gerald?
Yeah, it's surprising to me. I think not any shot at Nick Brooks. I was just very in on Brandon Baker when he came to campus. We've talked about it before. When Trevor Gooseby was the guy who came in at left tackle last year and not Brandon Baker, I was surprised because I thought Baker came to campus almost as a ready-made kind of plug-and-play guy. And so, seeing him get pushed, I'm not upset about it because I love that Kyle Flood and the staff are making it as open of a competition as they can. I think the thing with Nick Brooks, when he came in, a lot of the conversation was he's 6'1", like 6'7", 345. Like he needs to tighten up his body a bit. He was a big kid coming in and he actually has put on weight. I think he's like 4-ish pounds heavier than when he came to campus, but you can look at the pictures of like his senior year and then kind of the spring conditioning, like the end of spring conditioning, and his body has absolutely changed. And so like that was always the question about him, was very much like a Cam Williams situation where if he gets to be the right body composition, you can't really say right weight because at 6'7", 350 looks a lot different than on a regular person. But if you can get him to the right body composition, then he's going to be, I said it in a chat, like he is kind of the ideal body type for an offensive tackle. Long arms, great reach, kind of a good bend to him. So the fact that you can even just look at like his face, like look at his 247 headshot from high school and then look at his headshot on the roster, you could see he's thinned out. He's kind of chiseled up a little bit. This is a lot of weird talk about like he's come in and put in the work, right? That's what I'm trying to say is like he's come in and put in the work, did the things to his body that he needed, because anybody that knows recruiting and knows offensive linemen was saying if Nick Brooks can get his body right, he can be a dude. And so he seems to have come in and taken it very, very seriously. Again, Brandon Baker is a kid who, when I watched his high school tape, I was like, this kid's going to slot in and be a tackle day one if Texas needs him to. And so the fact that Brooks is pushing him, I think, is less about Baker's ability and more about Brooks's ability and his body and his ability to come in and put in the work.
No, I agree. And yeah, the funny thing is that's who I was thinking when he committed to Texas. I was thinking Cam Williams. He'll sit for 2 years, start his third year, probably go off to the NFL. And, the coaches saw him and said future first-round pick. But I didn't know, hey, he's a first-round pick right now. We're going to start him right away in his freshman year. Because honestly, guys, that's usually what happens. Like if you start as a freshman at the tackle position, you're probably like a first or second-round talent. So, I mean, it is shocking because Brandon Baker, obviously way higher touted coming out of high school, and a guy that, like you said, could have slotted in, I thought, and played right away, but may get beat out and not even play a second year, which is super surprising. And I mean, guys, if this isn't decided like 1 or 2 weeks left, I think Nick Brooks is going to be the starter, because I think the coaches are going to say, if it's even, why don't we just give it to the guy that's younger so he has more available playing time to us? I think that's what's going to end up happening. I think Nick Brooks is going to win this. Like, to me, you don't really hear this with any other position on the offensive line. We don't hear Trevor Gooseby competing. We don't hear Neto Umuzulu competing, even though that's the one I was actually worried about the most. We don't hear about him competing. It's just going to be his job. Cole Hudson's going to be the center, and DJ Campbell's going to be the right guard. But guess what? We hear about this competition, and that, to me, bodes well for Nick Brooks. Like you said, better player, should play no matter what. I don't care if someone is getting paid more, which is definitely the case here. Brandon Baker, no, without a doubt in my mind, is making probably double the amount Nick Brooks is, honestly. And I think, this tells me a lot about the Felix Ojo thing too, because I think they saw this with Brandon Baker and Felix Ojo and said, we kind of already have this situation with a guy that can't really see the field already, and we're paying him to sit on the bench. Do we want another one of those guys? And they were probably worried about that. So that kind of tells me about this situation. So I do think Nick Brooks wins this job, and it's a shocker. It really is. This is the biggest shocker I think we've had here since Kelvin Banks starting his freshman year.
Yeah, I think the longer it goes into camp without us hearing, oh yeah, Brandon Baker is separated, I think the higher likelihood it is that Nick Brooks is your starter come game one. And I think you mentioned Felix Ojo, and I didn't necessarily look at it as far as like, having to sit multiple years and pay, but like, if Nick Brooks is this good already, then why pay Felix Ojo, right? Yeah. He's going to be here for 3 years. So Ojo's probably going to come in and transfer, right? Like, that's where my head goes. It's not necessarily, but like, I ultimately for I've said it before, I'll say it, like, Nick Brooks, when you look at his tape, when you look at his body comp, when you look at what he does, like, the dude is not to sound like too hoity-toity, like the Vitruvian man of an offensive tackle, right? The ideal like size, shape, structure you want from an offensive tackle. And so the fact that he's come in and reshaped his body and did it so quickly bodes really, really well for his potential at Texas. Because again, I keep going back to the Cam Williams conversation. When Cam Williams was being, the reason why his star rating was lower than folks thought it should be was because folks didn't know if he could make weight, if he could make the body changes he needed to be a starter in the SEC or at a power 4 level. And he did that. And I think Nick Brooks came in and was in a similar situation, right? He was able to be dominant in high school because he's just the biggest freaking thing on the field. But when you get to the SEC, that's not going to fly. And so his ability to get his body right in such a short amount of time shows, I think, in my mind, the work ethic, how seriously he takes it, and how much he wants it. And if you got those 3 things on top of being a physical freak, the ceiling, the sky is the limit for a kid like that. And so seeing him come in and compete at that level is very, very heartening.
No, 100%. I completely agree. Corey, I haven't seen you in here for a very long time in the live show, so welcome back. And Cam Williams is on the Philadelphia Eagles now, and that was a good pick by them. But I agree with the second part of this. Who are the starters for the second team, and the line has to stop the false start shit? Yes, they absolutely have to start. Pre-snap penalties and holding killed almost half the drives we had last year.
I don't want to point a specific finger, but I think the guy who we all thought maybe should stay around an extra year that got drafted to the Eagles, there was a 1-to-1 between some of the pre-snap procedural stuff and my feelings on why I thought Cam Williams should come back. So, but that does bring up a good point. Like, I think Texas having a 6th guy, whether it is Baker or Brooks, that can slot in at either side if somebody gets rolled up on or goes down, that second unit, I think, is a big deal. And so having this close level of competition between Baker and Brooks, right, that they have a guy who could probably slot in on a 1-to-1 basis if somebody goes down, who could play on either side, which is the advantage of a guy like Baker or a guy like Brooks being able to compete. So yeah, I'm with you there. I think the Eagles can get him right. Fingers crossed, right? But you're absolutely right. Got to stop with the pre-snap stuff. Drive killers. Some of it may have graduated. Some of it may have been drafted away from Texas. But ultimately, that second unit conversation, I think, is a big deal. And I think we need to bring that up. Having a close competition like that means that Texas has a 6th guy that they could slot in multiple spots and play and be successful.
Yeah, and I believe the other tackle would be in the mix if we lost 2, which, I mean, that would be dreadful and devastating.
Yeah.
I believe Peyton Kirkland is the other guy. And then we have Connor Robertson. That's kind of your guard. Like, we'll switch between both guard positions. And then I think he would probably be your 3rd string center. And then Daniel Cruz would be your other backup center, I believe. Those are like the 3 other guys that you would need to know. If it gets past that, let's just put it this way. We are effed. We don't even need to talk about those guys because it would not be good. And that's, by the way, that's every team in the country. There's no offensive line that can survive like 3 to 4 major injuries. You're done at that point. Corey, Baker leaves and it'll open up more. And well, I would hope he sticks around because in my opinion, I think Trevor Goosby's gone after this year. I think Trevor Goosby is one and done. I think he's going to be a first or second round pick in the NFL. That's all this, stuff coming out of camp. And then also what I watched last year, he very much impressed me in the Texas A&M and Georgia games for your first 2 starts. So I think he's gone after this year. And then guess what? It'll be Nick Brooks and Brandon Baker. I don't know who will be right tackle and who will be left tackle, but those will be your tackles in my opinion next year.
Yeah, I think you slide Brooks again. We're talking 2 years out, right? If Goosby is who we think he is and he leaves after 1 year, I think Brooks slides to left. I think you put Baker in at right, and I think things continue to spin on into the future.
Yeah. So your opinion right now, we'll probably touch on this in another week or two when we have a little bit more information. Obviously, just kicked off today, but let's just do percentage wise. What percent do you give Nick Brooks the starting job here?
I think the fact that it wasn't decided coming out of spring makes me feel more confident that it's going to be Brooks. And so I'll put 60-40 Brooks Baker at this point. Like, I don't want to say but again, if it's not decided, if the upperclassman doesn't win it in the spring, then the pendulum swings over toward the freshman. It's really just always how I think about it.
No, 100%. I said 65-35 in my head. So we're basically in the same ballpark. And every week that goes by, I'm going to push that up 5 to 10% because if we're a week out and we don't know, it's probably going to be Nick Brooks.
100%. I'm with you.
Again, guys, please hit that like button and subscribe. We really appreciate you guys doing that. Also, please check out our website at the Voice of College Football. We really appreciate that. Just type into your favorite search engine, Yahoo, Google, Bing, whatever it may be. Type it in and you will get the Voice of College Football website where you can check out new articles posted daily by our content creators. We really appreciate when you guys do that. Also, check out the Voice of College Football Instagram page. Just go on Instagram and type in the Voice of College Football. Get us to, let's say, 1,000 subscribers by halfway through the year. I think we're at like 300 or 400 right now, so we really appreciate when you guys do that as well. Well, you can obviously tell how I'm not up to date anymore. Hey, man, we get it. People have a lot more stuff to pay attention to than this. That's why you watch us, to keep you up to date with the information. So that's why
we will keep you informed.
Yeah, we got you. But we really appreciate it. Like, you've been here. You might be the first person I remember commenting on any the stuff here at the Voice of College Football. So we really appreciate that. Next up, Kavian Bryant recruitment. This is a guy Texas offered. I think we talked about 3 months ago, and we talked about how he kind of broke the Steve Sarkisian mold of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to end up at either Texas Tech, Texas A&M, or Texas. I fully believe that. I think he's probably going to end up being the number 1 ranked quarterback in next year's class as well. So can Texas repeat on back-to-back number 1 quarterbacks? Basically 3 out of the last 4 years. If we're able to land them, we'd have 3 at the top, or 3 number 1 quarterbacks. That'd be really impressive. What do you think about Kavian Bryant's recruitment? And then what do you think? We'll go back to the original question we did a couple months ago. Like, is there a new mold Steve Sarkisian is trying to get of his quarterback?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a new mold, but I think you're going to see fewer and fewer like pure pocket quarterbacks being among the elites, right? We're past the statues, the old school Mannings, right? The Peyton and the Eli Mannings of the world. I think they're probably not going to be, unless they're transcendent kind of arm talent kind of kids, you're not going to see that happen anymore. I mean, Kavian Bryant honestly feels very much like your old school, like true dual threat kind of quarterback. He's a 3-sport star, like track, basketball, so an explosive athlete as well. Passed for like 27, 28. I don't remember. The number was ridiculous, and then ran for another 700s. Like, he's a like true dual threat, not like the old school kind of, they play quarterback, but it's a running kind of guy. Again, like you said off the top, he is more of a pure athletic runner than I think you typically see with Sark. It's hard for me to say that Sark is going to change his archetype just because the quarterback is so integral to what they do in this offense that Steve Sarkisian recruiting a guy to be a runner just doesn't compute for me because he doesn't want his quarterback to get injured, right? And the easiest way for a quarterback to get injured is running an option player, kind of putting yourself out there. And so I don't necessarily think Sarkisian is changing his archetype. I just think you've got a guy like Kavian Bryant who can be a pocket operator, because you've seen him do it. Well, go watch his sophomore tape. Dude has a cannon, and dude can read the defense and make really incredible throws. But he's also got elite feet on him. And so I don't know if it's like a changing of it. I just think you've got a kid in Palestine who's an in-state kid who's an elite level at both of those things. And so why not go after him? I'm curious to see if he's willing to come to Texas because of the Diabell of it all, right? I don't know what that's going to look like for him. I mean, those kids generally aren't afraid of competition, but also, you know, I'll just go ahead and say, like, if a Texas A&M or a Texas Tech is paying top dollar for his services and has a quicker path to the field, then I get it why he would go there. So I think those are two very different conversations, but ultimately I love his game. He's the kind of kid that, like, I drool over at quarterback. I love his game. He's an elite kind of kid. But if him coming to Texas, I think I would probably put Texas third in that pecking order, just simply because of the Diabell of it all. I think that's probably the thing in the back of my mind.
No, I agree. Like, it's hard for me to imagine he skips over Diabell. I think Diabell's really good. I actually think Diabell will probably, when Arch is done, will probably end up being a starter here. But I think he could be next in line. Like, this guy's super talented, super athletic. He's a really good basketball player as well. Texas he actually spoke to Sean Miller, so I think there's a possibility he could play both. And if he wants to do that, like, if his heart is set on that, I'm just going to let people know, whoever offers him that, because that's going to be rare. Not many schools are going to say you can do both. That's probably where he ends up going. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think that kind of favors Texas Tech, because that kind of smells of, damn, we really need this kid. Yeah, let's let him play basketball as well. And he'd be a really good get. Like, I'm not hating. He's a really, really good football player.
Yeah.
And true dual threat, in my opinion. Super athletic guy, can do it all. His throwing motion's a little bit weird, but nothing that can't be fixed. But a super talented kid, and he's in a family full of athletes. Like, all of his parents both played, I believe, collegiate sports, and then he has like two brothers that are already being recruited. One's in 8th grade. So this kid's comes from a really good athletic background. They take it super seriously. They're doing like crazy stuff and talking about, instead of, reading books at night about certain things, they're talking about reading books about how to make yourself a better athlete. That's like one of the things they do. So very athletic family. And I think I agree. It doesn't break the mold, because in Sark's system, you're going to have to be precise with the football. You're going to have to be accurate with the football. You're going to have to make quick decisions, get the ball out quickly in certain aspects, certain times. And that's what he's going to want. But does he want a statue? No, he does not want that. And I think, honestly, Quinn Ewers, probably hurt that case. You kind of watched him and saw, damn, he gets hurt a lot, because, he's not really able to outrun defenders. And he kind of has to sit in the pocket and take those hits. And also, it kind of takes stress off your offensive line. Your offensive line doesn't have to be perfect with that guy sitting back there for 3, 4, 5 seconds, instead of him scrambling around, which is really hard on the defense as well.
Yeah, it allows a lot of things. When you hear me talk about actual X's and O's of football, right? It's all a numbers game. And so if your quarterback can run, that's another number you have to account for. It's another defender that you have to account for. And so it swings some of the mathematical favor back in the offense's direction. So again, that's why I think the offense will look pretty different with Arch Manning back there, because Arch Manning does have the wheels that he gets from, his parents. He got it from his mom, but whatever. And I think, again, having a kid like Kavian Bryant back there, who I think could operate the offense from the pocket like Steve Sarkisian really prefers, but ultimately break defenses down with his feet if things go sideways, is a plus thing, right? Especially the SEC defenses are going to be good. They're going to get after the quarterback. You're going to need to be able to show some escapability, to step up in the pocket. And really, when a guy like Kavian Bryant steps up in the pocket, it creates an extra level of tension for a defense, right? Because is he stepping up to make time to throw, or does he see a crease, right? And so everybody's eyes kind of get a little bit poorer in that moment. So I would love to have a kid like Kavian Bryant. I think Diabell brings some of that. I think KJ Lacey brings some of that. I don't think either of them are as elite of runners as Kavian Bryant is. I think Kavian Bryant is a true dual threat, whereas I think Diabell and KJ Lacey both can move a little bit, is the way I'll say it. Ultimately, I think, again, I don't think it's breaking the mold at all, because I think Kavian Bryant has this skill set as a quarterback to run the offense, the arm strength, the ability to read defense, the ability to make the right choices. But I think he has an added layer of athleticism that makes things even more fun for a guy like Steve Sarkisian, who likes to stress out defensive coordinators.
No, I agree with that 100%. Like, I think Sark wants as many avenues opened up for him as possible,
Yep.
especially in this day and age and the way football's played. So I completely agree with that, and it's going to be interesting. Like I said, Texas wants this done early with their quarterback. We've seen that under Steve Sarkisian. Usually, it's like one of the first 2 to 3
Yep.
kids in the class. We got Bell super early. He sticks with us, and I think that's the thing too. They give a pretty big offer right away because they want that thing done. So we're going to probably know by the end of this year who our quarterback is going into next year's or 2 years class. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know who it's going to be at this point. Right now, Kavian Bryant seems to be the big name thrown out there, but it's early. But again, they kind of want this done early.
Yeah, and you got to, when you have an in-state kid like that at a school like Palestine, or at a school, it's not from, he lives in Palestine, he's at Westwood, so don't get at me in the comments. I know he's at Westwood, it's in Palestine. All right, when you have a kid like that in state, you have to prioritize it. You have to show that the high school coaches in the state, as much as recruiting is national and as much as Texas is a national recruiting brand, you have to make your bread and butter in the Lone Star State. So when you have an elite kid like that, you have to show the proper amount of attention to that level of player. And so I think they'll be serious in the Kavian Bryant business. But ultimately, I think the decision will come down to, like, what for him, for the Bryant family, like, does coming to Texas and sitting behind Bell potentially for a year or two benefit him well.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing too. It's all about waiting. I think Bell's fine with waiting, and I think that's because of who his dad is. I think Arch Manning was fine with waiting because of who his family is. Kavian Bryant's family didn't play professional sports. They may not be in that mindset, so we'll have to see. This has been the 61st edition of Texas Longhorns Live, but you know what? There's quite a bit, few of you in the comments leaving comments, so we'll get to these a little bit as well. And this bothers me when I mess up. Peyton Kirkland transferred. Jaden Chapman is who the guy I was talking about. I hate when I mess up like that. So Peyton Kirkland would not be the guy. It would be Jaden Chapman. And Connor Stroh, I saw that as well. Yes, Connor Stroh is currently at Texas still. I got to support my fellow Ginger there as well. I know he's a redhead.
Oh, man.
How good is Turntine? Corey Peacock says, I think Turntine could play year one. I think he's that good. I also think he's a tackle. I disagree that he's a guard. I know he's listed as a guard right now. I think he's a tackle.
I'm with you there. I think he's a tackle. I think he's a guy who, this is how I always like to phrase it. He's a guy who, if you have to play him in year one, you're probably okay. I think more than likely Texas probably would get to play him in year one, is more likely, where he just comes in and makes it impossible for him to sit. I ultimately think, though, that, like, with what Texas has done in that tackle group specifically, I think he won't have to. But if he does come on campus and you need a guy to play, I think he's good enough to play year one and be fine. I'd prefer him not to have to, but that's pretty good.
Yeah, I could also see, like, if they really need him to, he might be able to slide into guard and play there as year one. If you're like, you know what, he's just too good to keep off the field. Kyle Flood talks about that. I want my 5 best. So if he's one of the 5 best, he'll play.
And DJ Campbell's probably gone this year, so that opens up some competition on the interior. Cole Hudson's gone. Robertson, I think, also, right?
Yeah, I think either or he has to transfer.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be opportunity for him to play year one, and I think it'd be a get to for Texas, right? If he comes in, you get to play that kid. So I think he's good. I think he's really good.
Yeah, the only scenario where I see he's forced to play is if Brandon Baker, like you said before, transfers out and Trevor Gooseby leaves the NFL. But it's hard for me to believe they let Brandon Baker transfer out if Trevor Gooseby goes to the NFL. I don't think they'd let that happen. I agree.
Those 2 things happen.
No. I agree with this. To run the zone, you can't have a Ewers. Georgia proved that. Yeah, Georgia did a lot of things. Like, we don't have access to the all 22 footage. It help out a lot when rewatching these games, but people do, and they put clips on Twitter, and Georgia basically would shift their defensive line right before the snap every time when they played Texas. Yeah. And that just, like, Texas got destroyed by that. Like, Texas did not have an answer for that. It's going to be interesting now that they know that's the thing with Georgia, how that they respond this year. We'll have to see.
And they played it better in the second game. Georgia didn't do as much of it in the SEC championship game because Texas seemingly was prepared for it, right? I think The Ewers conversation is always tough for me because I'm doing my rewatch of last season, and like Michigan Quinn Ewers is very different from Georgia Quinn Ewers because I think the guy wasn't healthy after the Michigan games. Like we have to take that with a grain of salt, right? I think part of Ewers' inability to move was the fact that he's just so beat up. Like he hasn't had a healthy season since his junior year of high school, I think, right? Like that's wild to me.
Well, you know what's wild is you can just do this. I've done this like 3 months ago. Type in Alabama versus Texas when they played the first time and the second time. Notice the velocity at which he throws the football the first time they played. He was darting throws down the field 45 yards to Xavier Worthy. And then the next year he's having to throw these moonshots and they were touchdowns and they worked. But in the past year, he would have just struck that in there and you'd been like, damn.
Yeah.
So something happened, and I guess it was injuries. I don't know. Maybe it could have been mental as well. I have no idea.
I think the medical evals are even worse than what's gotten out there. Like that's always been my like conspiracy theory. My tinfoil hat is like, I think it's part of why he fell to the 7th round. It was like, I feel like we knew he had the labrum situation or whatever it was. Right. But like, I think the medical evals were just disgusting is always been my red flag. Like the only reason why he falls that far is because his body was worse than what we thought it was.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's like, to me, it was somewhere between the 3rd and 5th round. That's where I always thought he was going to be after watching him. And then I would agree the medicals had to be the reason for the 7th. And he's playing pretty well so far with the Dolphins from what I've seen. So I think there's a real chance he's the backup for them this year. And then if Tua gets hurt, who knows?
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. So, and I'm a Dolphins fan, so I might have to get a number 14 jersey. We'll see.
Are you actually?
I am. I'm a Dolphins fan. Grew up. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'm a Broncos fan. So Ja'Day, get to watch him, so that's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's always nice when my pro team, like the Dolphins, will randomly pick a Texas player. I'm like, I guess I have to pay attention now. It's an abusive relationship. I keep coming back to it, man. It is an unhealthy, toxic situation I cannot get out of.
Yeah, I think the Broncos have like 4 or 5 Texas players. They have like the most, I'm pretty sure. I know we got Brandon Jones, PJ Locke, and then Ja'Day Barron. I think there's 1 or 2 more I'm missing as well. I know we had Calvin Anderson for a while. Oh, Sam Ehlinger.
Yep.
So we got Sam Ehlinger as well. Yeah, Sean Payton made the joke. He's like, yeah, we're done drafting Texas players after Ja'Day Barron got picked. He's like, no, we're done. We got our quota.
It makes it easier for me to tune in if a team has a bunch of players. It's like, okay, I can cheer for Cats there. It feels good.
Corey, no, this is true. He's like 280, 285. He needs to put on about 15, 20 pounds. He doesn't need to put on a lot though. Like if you're 6'3", 300 pounds at tackle, I think you're pretty good, especially he's super athletic. Like he moves very, very well. And that's obviously what you want for a tackle.
Yeah, I think 247 has him at 285. So, I mean, he can come in and you eat a kid that big, you eat a couple peanut butter sandwiches right before bed, and I think you make weight. You make 300 by the end of spring camp. So he is small. I think he plays bigger than that 285 though, because North Crowley is not it's not small time when it comes to competition there in the DFW area. And so he plays a lot bigger than I think he's listed as a junior with 6'3", 285. So I'm curious to see what his like senior numbers look like, right? You always have to take off an inch and 15 pounds when you look at what they come in at 247 for their final ranking. So I think he'll probably come to campus right at like 6'3", 6'4", just a hair shy of 300. And I think that'll be a good starting position. He'll get into the strength and conditioning program. He'll get the right nutrition going. These professional strength and nutrition and strength and conditioning guys are insane because you look at a guy like, again, we talk about it, Nick Brooks came in at like a soft 345, 340, and he looks thinner and he's like 5 pounds heavier. So I think if a guy like Turntine needs to play early, they'll get his body right. I have no doubt about that.
Body recomposition is definitely a real thing. When you start picking up those weights for real and eating just slightly a little bit more healthy, you'll drop weight and put on muscle. Surprised OU isn't going in on Kavion Bryan, I'm assuming. I mean, OU's recruiting class right now sucks. I think they're like 40th in the country. I think there's many reasons for that. I'm not all in on Oklahoma being broke. I think that might be part of it. I think they're waiting and seeing on Brent Venables. And then I also think recruits are waiting and seeing on Brent Venables. They're like, I want to go there, but is he even going to be the head coach?
Well, and I think Oklahoma has, and this is my read on it, the way that they're structuring their like player personnel, I think they're trying to shift to less of we're going to go in for all the 5 stars And we'll go in for a couple of can't miss kids, but ultimately we're going to hit those 3 stars and those 4-star kids and try to develop them. That's why they've got the GM that they have, right? That's why they have a guy whose job, who was the NFL talent evaluation guru for a decade, right? That's why they bring it like, and ultimately OU's in such a weird state of flux. It's so weird for OU to not be like as consistent as we expect them, because not only is the Venables situation weird, but they're going to have to figure that out with Joe Castiglione on the way out. It's like, that to me is super weird. Like, is Castiglione going to make the decision before he leaves, or is he going to leave that for the next guy? Who are they going to? The OU athletic department is in a very weird situation that I'm not used to them seeing, because Castiglione has been, it sucks to say it, but Joe Castiglione has been like the high watermark for Oklahoma, for athletic directors in the country. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, I think as a Texas fan, you don't want them to be bad this year, and you don't want them to be good. Give me 8-4, because if they're 8-4, they keep everyone together, and I don't think they're going to fire him, and I don't think you're going to get many recruits. So I think it's actually going to set them up for worse success down the road if they go 8-4 and keep Brent Venables and have like the 30th best recruiting in the country.
Yeah, I think if they can hit like 8-ish, 9-ish wins, I think Venables stays around for another year or so, and I think it just continues to bode well for Texas.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What happened to the tight end that decommitted? From where? Are you talking about from the guy from Texas A&M that decommitted? Because I think he like immediately ended up at South Carolina like 48 hours later, if that's who you're talking about.
I think he's talking about Kiwi Brown. I think
he was talking about. Silently committed to Texas, and then I mean, let's be honest here, Texas didn't want him. That's why Texas they could have had this guy for 6 months, guys, but they said, no, we want bigger fish here. No, we want bigger fish here. And then he's like, you know what? I'm going to go somewhere else because you guys don't really want me.
Yeah, you don't often see the silent decommitment. I think, and again, this is me. I don't have sources. I've followed recruiting for a long time, and I have folks that have worked in recruiting. Like, this very much seems like the kid wanted in the boat, and Texas had not given him the green light to go public with his commitment, and he decided he wanted to move on. And more power to him. Like, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You only have one athletic career. You only hang up your cleats one time. Everybody that's ever played a sport competitively can remember how it felt the last time they took the field. And so, like, I have no fault for this kid for like wanting to say, hey, other schools are knocking at my door. I want to go somewhere else. I want to do something. But like, not being a public commit and then decommitting feels very much like I'm going to take my ball and go home in some ways. Whereas it reeks of somebody who wanted in the class. Texas was like, hey, yes, but we're looking at something else in that spot. We want to make sure things work out. And he may have gotten processed and got frustrated about it, or he may have just gotten tired of playing the waiting game. Either way, it's not a great look for him. Anybody that knows recruiting doesn't really think anything less of Texas. Like, everybody knows this is kind of how it goes in a lot of ways. And so ultimately, I think it's probably a good sign for Texas having other things in the works and other irons in the fire at the tight end position, probably some bigger fish. And I think Brown now gets to explore more openly his options.
No, I agree. And I think this is the position. It's wait and see for Texas for the season to unfold. They want to see how the room does, and they may not even need one. Like, if you have Jordan Washington coming back, you have Spencer Shannon coming back, you have Nick Townsend coming back, you don't really need a tight end for next year, honestly. So they're like, we'll wait on it. Now, if those guys don't do well, then I guarantee you we're going to go all in for a flip of a Caden Prothro or a Mark Bowman if USC falls apart. We're not going to give Mark Bowman that money. I think he's a great player. Fantastic. Yeah. He'll be an NFL player for sure, but 100%. I can't give a tight end $2 million a year.
No, not that like you can get a left tackle for that. You can get an edge rusher for that. And as much as I think tight ends are pivotal and vital, like, that is not a position where you could probably, if Malik Muhammad and a couple of other guys leave at the cornerback, you could probably get a cornerback one for that money, right? Like, you got to think about the positions of need and how much those cost, and having to like renegotiate with the other guys in the room. You pay a freshman tight end $2 million and the rest of the locker room gets more expensive. Like, those are things you have to think about.
No, 100%. And I will say this, I don't 100% know because I think a lot of those numbers reported are inflated by like 10 to 20%. So he probably is getting like 1.5 million, but I don't think he's getting two. But either way, I'm not paying him 1.5 million dollars as a tight end. Like that's like quarterback money, guys. I'm not paying that for a tight end.
Not at all. No, not even a little bit.
And then this will be the last one. If not Brent, then who? Especially if they are broke. I don't know who they would hire. I really have no idea which way they could go. I'm trying to think of anyone that has any Oklahoma ties. Didn't Rhett Lashley used to call plays for Oklahoma? Or am I wrong?
He did. I think he did. Yeah. I think the thing that may keep Venables around after this year, like if they fire him this year, it's still a $35 million buyout. Like it's not a huge number, but it ain't a small number. Like if they decide to fire him this year, and that drops almost $8 million each year. So like I don't. If OU doesn't have the cash, $35 million is a lot of money to shell out to get rid of a coach. Because then you also have to think of buyouts for the rest of the staff, buyout for the potentially other guy that you're going to bring in. Like there's a lot of money tied up in that. So like, it's not just the 35 for him, but it's the rest of the staff and it's your new coach that you bring in. So it might just be cost prohibitive, right? They might have signed themselves up for for some forced patience, I guess is the right way to say it. If the buyout is too big, 35 is a big number.
This is where I'm at with all that stuff too. Like as an athletic director, why are you dumb enough to give these buyouts when guys like where's Brent Venables going to go? Is he going to go to the NFL as a head coach? No, the NFL is not hiring Brent Venables as a head coach. If he's going to go to another college football team, guess what I do? I tip my hat to him and say, have a good time, brother. We're not giving you this buyout money. Like, I don't understand why teams do this. I didn't understand when Texas gave a deal to Tom Herman after he won the Sugar Bowl and his buyout went up. Like, why are you doing that? Why did Jimbo Fisher get that deal with Texas A&M? The only reason I'm okay with doing it with Sark is because guess what? Sark has a realistic possibility of going to the NFL. If he didn't, I wouldn't have given him the extension in the buyout because I would have dared him. I would have said, where are you going to get it? Where else are you going to get the money?
And I think the difference between like that and even Venables got an extension after their 10-2 season, I think at the 23 season, whatever it was, going into last season, he got an extension. So before things sucked last year, but like the difference between like Steve Sarkisian and Brent Venables in that year or the Tom Herman extension is like they extended Sark after he brought home a trophy, right? So Sark brought home a conference championship. That's always my standard for extending a coach is don't extend a coach before he brings home a conference championship trophy, right? There's no reason, like stop extending guys that haven't brought home a trophy. Like there's a lot of coaches that can get you 10-2 without a trophy, right? James Franklin getting an extension 10-2 without a trophy. Like it's just weird to me. Again, that's James Franklin's an outlier because I think the Big Ten, like quit extending guys that haven't won you a trophy unless someone is actively trying to poach them. Like, do not extend a guy that hasn't brought you home a trophy.
Well, and that's the thing. Where's James Franklin going to go? Like, Penn State's a top 10 job in the sport. If he wants to get, like, for whatever reason, let's say Brian Kelly gets fired and he's flirting with LSU, I would be like, hey, you want to go to LSU? Have fun. We'll go find another coach because he's not like this God-tier coach to me where he's not Nick Saban. If you're Nick Saban, fine. You can have anything you want, you can have. Same with Kirby Smart at this point. Anything you want, you can have. But I'm not doing that for anyone else. And Ryan Day might be in that category as well, but everyone else, I'm just like, hey, listen, man, if you want to go somewhere else to another school, have fun. I'm not giving these insane buyouts. And that's nothing to Oklahoma. If you're going to buy him out, you might as well just put that money to like put 20 million of that towards your football team instead of putting 35 towards a new coach.
Yeah. It's just, this is a bigger conversation about coaching contracts and coaching, especially in the era of the house settlement and NIL. It is just an interesting shell game they have to play with buying out coaches and buying out players. Just very, very weird.
No, 100%. Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. This has been the 61st edition of Texas Longhorns Live. You can find me right there on my Twitter or X or whatever the heck you want to call it right there, Matthew MS97. You can also check out Gerald on X or Twitter or Blue Sky right there. And you can check out his Longhorn podcast, just like the Voice of College Football, on Spotify, Apple, or iHeartRadio. Wherever you can find your podcast, you can find it right there. We really appreciate you guys joining us. Check in every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And we're actually starting a new show tomorrow with a former NFL player, Brandon Ross, played in the NFL for 5 years. He will be on the Texas channel as well, breaking it down for us, getting a little bit more in depth with the X's and O's. So we really appreciate him joining this Voice of College Football team. So please check that out as well. We'll leave this. Oklahoma just needs to change our charge for the spring game. They will be fine. Yeah. We really appreciate you guys joining us. And as always, hook 'em.
Hook 'em.